Have you ever had an idea that was so clear it was like a 3D movie? Have you ever told a friend about the idea and they told you, wow, if you could only make that into a business, you would be rich? Sound familiar? Welcome to Knowledge to Currency. I'm your host, Senator Porter, with my co-host, Roosevelt Williams III, and we're here to help you take action. This is free information. We only ask one thing: build a strong foundation and mindset. We have insight to help you get started. Most of us just need a push.
Hey, it's Grant from Petco Park.
And this is Cheyenne, and we're a shout out to YB and MP for partnering with us today for our theme game.
Have a good day.
Welcome, episode 5, Knowledge and Currency. I have my guest, Joe Frazier from State Farm. Before we get started, I want to dedicate this episode to women in my family that have passed. I have 3 aunts, Josephine, Nick Mathis, and Ramona Mathis, and in the last 14 months, they all passed, and it kind of hit home for the subject. So some of the things we want to talk about is life insurance and why people should have it, and why it's something that's needed in families, and just how to handle estates and stuff like that. So welcome to the show, Joe.
I appreciate it, man. My condolences.
I appreciate it. So that's why I'm really passionate about the subject, because in my lifetime, most of the time when people have passed in the family, I had like other people that were older than me that handled the situation.
Right.
This time I'm the executor of a will, so I'm looking at this stuff. And then as I started going through the process myself, I was like, man, people need to know this information. People need to kind of discuss it. So before we go into that, let's talk about you.
So again, my name is Joe Frazier. I'm originally from Chicago.
South side, north side?
The south side.
South side,
yeah. Moved up here with the family about 4 years ago. Just really off of just wanting more. Chicago kind of keeps you a little blocked in. Being able to expand your mind and see other opportunities for yourself, it's a little gray there.
Sometimes,
yeah. So, came out here for the first time to interview, really, in November. And we were on the next thing smoking in December.
November kind of cold.
Right, and so we made a decision. We, packed everything up and we came here, with the opportunity of one more.
And then it's you, your wife, have children?
Yes, I have a 13-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl, thriving.
Cool.
Thriving, love it.
They love the ocean and being out the cold?
Absolutely. My son more so understands it. Of course, him being older, my daughter was about 2.
Okay.
So her just,
You don't know any better.
But her introduction is different too.
Sure.
My son kind of went through a few things back home just with school and different approaches to just life in general. And my daughter, of course, starting out here. Okay. So they are just different people from that. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your business. What do you do?
So I am an account manager with State Farm currently, with the projection to open my own office. Okay. I want to be North County.
Okay.
And it's just been great. The progression, like I said, I've been with them since I got here. They've been great in mentoring me and preparing me to open my own doors.
How did you choose State Farm over other companies?
That's a very good question. So this is a perfect segue to relationships.
Okay.
So my wife is a realtor.
Okay.
And one of the agents out here was a realtor in Illinois at one point. And so just in, sharing like, hey, we're thinking about going to California, one of her friends was like, hey, I know an agent out there.
Okay.
And so off of that connection, I immediately had at least an interview. And from there, Perfect. Of course, I've gotten a job. So it's like relationships are everything.
Your network is your net worth, opening that door for you.
And it got me all the way to California. So.
And then you didn't know much about insurance before you got into the industry?
Not at all. I came, I studied, I tested, of course, got certified with the state of California, then immediately kind of jumped in and realized like, wow, this is so much information that, I'm 36 years old at the time. And I'm just like, wow, I am too old not to understand and know how these things work. And that's when I realized, like, I know a lot of people like me.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the biggest misconception you hear about insurance?
You don't need it. What do I need it for? Mm-hmm. I've had a perfect driving record and this, that, and the other. And people don't realize insurance is never for you.
Sure.
It is always third person.
Sure.
Right? So that's the biggest part. It's not what you do. It's what another person could do to you and what they may not have. And right? So you have to look at it from that perspective, right? Mm-hmm. Do what you need to do to prepare for yours, but out of the side of that, make sure you have certain things in place in case someone doesn't have enough to, get you back to where you were. For a lot of times, people are like, oh, I'm going to go through the other company. And you'll be waiting. You'll be waiting.
So then, obviously, car insurance is important. What other insurances should people have, no matter what their situation is?
Absolutely, life insurance.
Okay, life insurance.
100%.
What's the difference between term and whole?
So term and whole, difference is pretty much whole is going to be permanent, right? Okay. Permanent means your lifetime. Right? Term is exactly that. It's going to be a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Right? So in going into what you're deciding to pick, the biggest thing is like, what are you looking to get from it?
Okay.
Right? So that's always what you want to think about it. If you're just looking to make sure like your family's taken care of, term is not a bad idea.
Okay.
All right. But if you're like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm diversifying, I'm putting money away for rainy day, whole life.
So then on term, you cannot borrow against it. On whole life, you can borrow against it?
So State Farm has a policy. Some other companies also have a policy that is term, but it's called return to premium, right?
Okay.
So it's when you pay a certain amount of years into it. Mm-hmm. And, of course, if you're alive to that term, it pays you back the premium.
Oh, wow.
So those are, like I said, they have different names. Ours is called return to premium.
Okay.
And so that's probably, again, if you're younger or just kind of married, something to that effect, your 20s, early 20s, I would probably look into something like that. That way, when you're in your 40s, 50s, you can kind of get a nice little chunk of change back.
So like when I was a kid, I remember my grandma had all these insurance policies on her. And I guess in the military, when the kid was born, you get an insurance policy when they're born. And then that way, when the time they get old enough, you hand the policy to them. They
can take it over. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Is that something you discuss with clients?
So sometimes speaking to clients now, you realize like they're similar to my situation, right? I've been married. I have children. Life insurance wasn't always like something that I immediately thought of. So it's age-based. Yep. Right. So you want to think of it from a perspective of, okay, how much can I afford on an average base?
Okay.
You never want to put yourself in a position of paying or not being able to pay because it's critical.
Okay.
You want to treat it like your phone bill, right? It has to be paid. So in order to think like that, you have to make sure that you're doing it in a timely fashion. Okay. So information is always key. What do you want it for? Typically, at my age, you want it for your children. You want it to maybe pay your house off or make sure your wife or your children don't have to, right? So for me, that's what I did.
Okay.
When I first kind of came to. Now that my children are young, I looked at them like, hey, I'm going to start you off better.
Okay.
So I did them with permanent because it's more affordable.
Okay.
Right. So again, like I said, I don't want to put myself in the poorhouse here. Like I'm making sure that I'm looking at how much is this going to cost over a length of time. My children would be of age for this policy at 18.
Okay.
And if I feel they are more responsible at the age of 18, I feel that they're working. Typically you do it when they start a family.
Okay.
It's the best idea. But, what if your kids don't want to do that? Yeah. It is their policy.
Okay.
Let's not forget that, right? That's right. So you could pay for it. It could be in your name, but if they want the money, they can go get the money.
Okay.
Okay. That's why I haven't told them too much about it yet.
They may see this now.
You're right. They're right. So, but with that, that's actually what it's for. It's for them to say, oh, I want to buy a car.
Oh, so like the infinite banking thing.
Exactly. Okay. So you're able to say, hey, I want to take $6,000 out of my account, go, buy a quick, A and B car. So you can do that. Mm-hmm. You can do that. That's my plans for my son. So, and that's how I'm looking at it when I talk to families now. It all depends on how much information you have about it currently.
Okay.
Right. Then I educate you. And I'll always advise at that point, like, you definitely, if anything, you want to get your children established.
Okay.
Because no matter what, I mean, you may have an aunt, a grandma, somebody is willing to give you $20, $30 to cover this expense.
Sure.
Yeah, even if it's for a length of time. Like, I've negotiated with my mother-in-law, like, hey, you cover this for 5 years, and then I'll pick it up in 5 years.
Okay.
Right? You have to utilize your resources, because this is important to change the problems that we're having.
Okay.
Right.
So in that example, he borrows $6,000 from the policy. Mm-hmm. Then does he make payments every month to pay it back, or how does that work?
So it's up to you. It is a loan out against it.
Sure.
So me being who I am, if I decide to go that route, what happens is you have two choices. You can pay it back.
Okay.
And it continues to, it's always going to earn as you continue to pay. It'll continue to earn. But if you want it to be the earning potential that it was, of course, the more that's in there, the more it earns. Mm-hmm. Then you pay it back.
Okay.
But if you're like, hey, I really needed this, I'm not going to be able to pay it back, then what happens is at the end of it, as long as you continue to pay, they just subtract the loan amount from the death benefit amount.
All right.
That's pretty much it. And it puts that to bed. The loan is settled. The debt is paid.
Okay. So then there's no interest on the money or nothing?
No interest on the money.
So then why wouldn't people just do this instead of going to the bank?
That's the thing. This was never a game for us to play.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So this was never a game for us to play in. Because so my boss asked me this question. He said, imagine if every black person had life insurance. Right? Just imagine that.
Sure.
Right? Like a fair size policy, even $100,000, right? Just imagine every black person had a life insurance policy.
Sure.
Would I need anything from anybody else?
No.
It was never a game for us to play.
So as in that example, like you're talking about, your wife, you have 2 children. Children grow up, they go to school, they come out, and they want to start a business. If you've had these policies since they were at the ages they are now, mm-hmm. they could literally just get the money from their policies, and then
no need to start off a situation with debt. I can absolutely borrow against that. As long as I continue to pay it will continue to be active, it will continue to grow.
Man, how come your phone ain't ringing up?
So, again, it comes back to what we deem as important.
Sure. So
I understand that people view it as important.
Sure.
A lot of like food, like, your phone bill, your rent. These are all, I'm not taking anything away from those things being important, but you have to lump those things in, right? Like they're all important.
In the budget.
You got to do the same thing with that,
But I mean, to me, there's always going to be a rainy day coming.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you set up for that rainy day?
I think it's again, it's not something that we were taught.
Sure.
Again, I'm telling you, I realized this a few years ago. Like, this is a game I can truly play in, and not needing to really put my money in a savings account. I would like cash my check and mm-hmm. then put my check in my life insurance policy. And just side note, most of your insurance companies that you have these permanent policies in, they have the resources to write you up to a $2,000 to $3,000 check on the spot.
But they don't.
They're not going to tell you that, right? They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. And it's of course immediate, right? So it's like, okay, this just happened.
Sure.
I have to do X, Y, and Z because I don't have the money otherwise.
Sure.
You go to your office. You're like, hey, I'll get you all the documents you need, but right now I got to get the body situated. I got to do this. I got to do that. How much you need? Check.
That's so crazy.
Check. So, again, you once you find these things out, you want to get the information out there. You want to tell people about it. a lot of the reason why I'm here. You and I, we sat and had a conversation. It was just immediate, right? So let's get this out there. And so that's when I'm here. I'm here to kind of really get that out there.
Well, I think that's important for people to know. The fact that you could start the policy, let's say you want to put $200 a month in it, and then as soon as you have a situation, you don't want to just use it for frivolous stuff.
Exactly. It's definitely emergency. I would definitely say, like, man, it's your roof fell in, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go through my insurance company, but I know I got, again, that's why it's diversifying. I'm not saying like all eggs in this basket.
Sure.
It's a good basket though.
Yeah.
Right? But have some few other pockets that you can pull from, but definitely let this be one of them for sure.
Or if you wanted to add an addition to your house to get rental income, that's something you can use it for. Or if you want to invest in another property.
So it's good you brought that up.
Resource for that.
So the reason it's a resource for that, just alone, depending on how much you have in your life insurance, you can leverage it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah. You can use it as an asset, right? You can say, hey, I have $50,000 in my whole life right now. How much of a loan do you need? Oh, I need 100. They at least know that you have 50.
Yep. And that's secured, like a house.
Exactly. An investment property, however you want to look at it. And so I absolutely, I think everyone should have this. Married, not married.
Sure.
All forms, especially my children. So FYI, the moment your child has a social security number, you can get a life insurance policy.
Which that's what my grandma did. That's crazy. She was smart.
Yes, yes. I think it might have been the Gerber ones. Yeah. I think my grandmother has a few. My grandmother has a few. That's when Gerber was really pushing the narrative.
Okay.
Right? They were small. They were 10,000, but they were good.
Yeah.
They were good policies. Again, we weren't like understanding really like what this was about. And, I almost want to say that this, if you really want to create change, this is on other levels of how much change it can create.
Okay.
Right. So if you think of an insurance company, the one thing they hate to do is pay.
Yeah, they don't want to pay.
Right? But imagine if every black person had insurance again.
Yeah. Then they'd be more willing to pay.
Right? And so insurance companies they get the best attorneys. They prosecute whoever.
Yeah.
So if you look at what's going on in America, insurance companies hate to pay.
Yeah.
So if you got a policy out and they got to pay, they're going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law whoever caused this death.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to pay.
Right. So
they're going to do whatever they can to make sure whoever did it pays whatever fine they need to pay, none of that, like protected by any of that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out there as like and then on top of that, it's almost heartbreaking when you see like the GoFundMe's, right?
Oh yeah. I was just at Target today and dudes like selling candy or something.
Yeah.
I gave him like $5 or $7.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I had in my hand.
And I think the biggest problem is people don't want to talk about death.
Yeah.
Right? I get it. Look, I'm a father. I don't want to think about anything happening to my children.
Sure.
But I also don't want to be in a situation to where I can't give them everything that they deserve to have.
Yeah, especially
that's my job.
Because you're gone.
Exactly. So I couldn't imagine their life changing on top of me not being there.
Yeah.
And then the same for me. Right, I'm gonna need a minute if something happens to my kids, but can I afford to do it?
Sure. Yeah.
I can, if that's the case, I can because I've allowed a certain amount of money in that situation that allows me to sit home and like grieve.
Yeah, process it all.
Exactly, decide if I want to go back outside, right? But because we are always in the situation we are as a culture, we got to go back to work after those 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to tell your boss, like, I can't come in. I mean, but you could if you really, truly needed to.
Sure.
So I look at it for purposes of healing.
Okay.
More than it is about, me selling you life insurance. Like I said, I don't do anything I don't care about.
Right.
And so this for me is like, it's the biggest thing that I'm now on this earth to do. right, is make sure every black person has life insurance.
Which is dope.
Yeah, that's it, and that's the goal.
All right, so we got car insurance, life insurance. What about business insurance?
That's one of my favorites as well. It's along the same lines as a passion, right? It's something that somebody has built from the ground up.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that there's no gaps in what you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And if, somebody is trying to hinder that, as far as like saying that maybe you might have done something, that I have things in place to help you fight that, right? So just understand that, insurance companies are there to make sure that what you're doing is within a certain line of risk evaluation, right? So it's like, what are you doing that I'm willing to pay for?
Okay.
Right? So businesses are our sweet spot, because we love the fact that people, again, they go out, they figure out what they can contribute to the world. And so we look at it from a perspective of, that's your baby.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to say, how can we insure your baby? Mm-hmm. If something happened to your baby right now, how big of a check do you want us to write? Okay. Right? So when we go over that, you might hear a lot like people say full coverage.
Right.
Do you truly know what that means?
For business or just in general?
Just in general, because that includes your business, right? Okay. So full means that I'm going to put a blanket around everything with your name on it. Okay. Right? So I like to go through that from what you drive to where you live to where you work. Okay. Right? That means I'm talking about your life. I'm talking about your liability, right? Which is like, people really don't get the liability is what puts you in the hole. Yeah. Right? It's somebody else saying that you caused this damage. Yeah. And so limits are where I always start. Limits are important because it's meant to cover your assets and income. It's not meant to just, the state says you can get 15,000, 30,000. Mm-hmm. That's the state minimum. Because the state minimum is like, how much does a person truly make here? It was about $15,000. Okay. But as your bracket goes up, so does your exposure. Oh, yep. Right? So if you make $100,000 a year, your exposure off that 15 is $85,000. Right. Because we're only going to pay up to $15,000. That means if you hit a Mercedes S-Class, right? Like, Windows 15,000. Right. But we're only paying that. Okay. Right. And so guess who's on the hook for the rest? We would be. Exactly. So I go through all of that. Okay. Right. What are you worth? And we're in California. Everybody will go after what you're worth. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got more I'm best friends with a lot of injury attorneys. Okay. And their job is to look at what you have. Okay. And how much they can take. Whew. Right. That's their whole job. Oh, you got hit? Cool. Call me. Right. Call me. And you got hit by this guy. He had it was his business truck. Right. So that's the thing. Yeah, it's good to have advertising, but realize if one of your guys hits somebody, there's something after your company. They coming after the company. They're coming after the person that was driving and you, the owner of the company. Okay. So we have to talk about, again, your exposure. Right. How open or exposed are you to litigation? Right? Can somebody say that you are at fault for something? My job is to tell you they could hear, and they could hear. And if you understand that, then, it's no question. I mean, State Farm, I don't know if I need to say a whole lot, right? Just we're on 100 years right now. Oh, dang. Okay. I didn't even know that. Been number one for about 96. Okay. Okay, and that's in all categories of auto, fire, and life. Okay. So just to understand the product. And when you understand premium, right? I know why people hate insurance. Yeah. Because you're paying for something that you feel like you'll never need. Until you need it. Until you need it. So imagine you're going to need it if you get into a car accident, whether you're hit or you hit someone. Yep. Whether your house is broken into or catches fire. whether your business burns down or whether somebody sues you.
Yeah.
You're going to need litigate. You're going to need some protection. You're going to need like a lawyer, right? Yeah. And there are people that are mega rich, and we call them self-insurers.
Oh, wow.
They're so rich, they don't care.
That's so crazy.
Right? I've never met a person like that.
That's so crazy.
But, you know, you have people that are like, oh, I don't care. If it's that, I'll pay it. Okay. Okay. And so, again, respect to all. Mm-hmm. My job is to give you the information. Right? Yeah. But that's what I do. I do I call it an insurance analysis. I go over any possible hole in your lifestyle.
Okay.
Right? And I try to plug it.
Yeah. Personally, what happened to me, I moved here, it's been 4 years now or whatever. In Florida, wherever you rent, you're required to have rental insurance. It's just a requirement. So I moved here, found a place, and got rental insurance, but didn't realize it. Like I switched my car and all that stuff. But when the guy asked me, I just said yes, and I got insured. So lived at my place for a year, and all of a sudden, the first time I moved in, it had like a minor flood that happened in the back because it had 2 bathrooms. So didn't really think nothing of it. The association of the building took care of it. It was inconvenience. I couldn't use that bathroom, but it wasn't the end of the world. So stay there that summer, and then someone's doing repairs upstairs, floods the whole apartment. So I'm like, oh my God. So me and the owner trying to figure out whose fault it was. They do some research. They figure out that it's the person upstairs' fault. It wasn't anything I did. I was at work. But now it's the difference of the occupancy of who lives there. So he was telling me, oh, I'll take care of everything. You've been a great renter. You pay your rent on time. We'll get this all squared away and get you a hotel. It happened like not Memorial Day weekend, but I think it was like Labor Day weekend. It was weekend of a holiday. So I went and got in the hotel, and like the people came to do the process of everything. And then they're like, well, hey, if you don't occupy this, your policy doesn't cover him because it's not you're not the primary occupant, and your policy doesn't cover the renter. So then the guy told me he's going to do all this stuff, and he's like, hey, I can't do it now. And then he's like, well, so do you have rental insurance? And I was like, I think I do. So fortunately I did. And then I had to pay for the hotels and keep all my receipts, do an expense report, and they reimbursed me. Yeah. But if I wouldn't have rental insurance, I would have just been out of luck.
That's true. And so what a lot of people don't realize is, honestly, insurance companies are good. The reason that they're good is because you don't have to deal with the litigation and stuff.
Sure.
Right? We're going to hire lawyers to get back the money.
Right.
That we as insurance companies spend as well. Okay. Right? You spend your deductible, and then we probably spend, 3 times that to repair whatever the damage is. Okay. So we're going to get our money back. Right? Sure. But you having to do that, that's the complicated part, right? So it's like, oh, if I have to go after my own money, like how that's going to be insane, right? Oh, it's like, oh my goodness, but you're right. And so, and the other part of that is you do have a case against the owner, like you, but that's what I mean. But you would have to do that outside of insurance, unfortunately. And that's what I'm speaking to, right? Because your property was damaged. Yeah. Why are you going through your insurance company as if you did something wrong?
See, you should have been my agent, man.
What did you do wrong other than,
I was just at work.
That's it. You rented the property under the assumption that the property is in standing condition. Sure. If it does not, him telling you that unfortunately it doesn't, that's your problem. Yeah. Unfortunately,
right? It was a hassle.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's the unfortunate part, because even the insurance he had was the wrong kind of insurance. Yeah. Right. So if you're a property owner, you should have rental property insurance. You shouldn't have just your insurance.
Oh, see.
But these aren't conversations that people have.
4 years ago. Yeah. So what ended up happening in that situation? We just couldn't come to an agreement. So he's like, I'll let you move. So I just went and got a brand new place. Yeah. And was like, you know, screw this guy type. But
and that's the unfortunate.
I could have sued him.
Yeah, you definitely could have. You definitely could have. Only because you were out of a situation, and you know what he threw wasn't worth, you know, what you were out of. So 100%, you could have 100% took it there. It's you know, but you don't know. Hey, but when you're good people, good things happen to you. So it's a blessing that you were able to get out of that situation. But that's what I'm saying. There are people that, you know, hey, they have to. Like, what do you mean? I don't have anywhere else to go. Yeah. And that's the unfortunate part. Like I said, I like to from point A to point B, because if that happens, I don't want you to be nervous about anything.
Sure.
I want you to immediately be like, okay, I remember talking to Joe about this. I'm good.
So if somebody, because we're almost done out of time, where could someone find you if they're interested?
Yeah, you can, on Instagram, it's Joe Frazier State Farm. And then my email is joe@dixinsurance.com.
I'll make sure to post his information on the channel so you guys can find him, but definitely an expert and someone that you should call if you need insurance. I appreciate you coming on our episode. Sure. I think it's very important, and thanks again for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, and have other people join the show as well.
All right. Blessings, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming on, man. Appreciate you. Yeah.